Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Midlands online worship service. My name is Jim Chrisman. I'm the worship associate for this morning's service. If you haven't already, please type into the chat box who you are and who you have brought with you today. Unitarian Universalism is a welcoming and inclusive religion. It encourages us to keep open hearts and minds because our own experience, conscience, and reason are the final authorities in religion. It affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person and that we are all connected to each other and the earth. If you are visiting us today, a special welcome to you. We appreciate you spending some of your Sunday morning with us. If you have any questions, please let us know in the chat box, by phone, or through our Facebook page. If you've been attending for some time and have come to feel that this is your spiritual home and you are considering becoming a member of the fellowship, please contact our minister, Reverend Eric Severson, or a member of the welcome team, or let us know of your interest in the chat box. If you have a chalice or candle at home and would like to join in our chalice lighting remotely, now would be a good time to get that ready. We will be including joys and sorrows this morning as we normally do during the service. You will want to find the participant icon to raise your hand for that. And we will now move to announcements. You'll see them on your screen. Next week's service will be Reason, Faith, Cults, and Conspiracy Theories, led by Reverend Eric Severson. We will discuss the mindset that makes one susceptible to conspiracy theories and cults. Do non-rational items of faith that so many of us hold dear prime our minds to accept nonsensical ideas outside the sanctioned bonds of religion? That's the bounds of religion. Is the desperate search for meaning, any meaning, just the nature of our brains? We are still looking for members for our website team. If you're interested in joining, please email Wendy at office@uufom.org. If you wish to make a suggestion or recommendation or would like to provide content, please email Wendy with the information. For a religious education program going forward into 2021, Heather Cleland Host is finishing out her time as Director of Religious Education, and so we are entering an interim period where the DRE search is completed. While the DRE search is completed, we invite everyone to welcome Shana Barth on board as UUFOM's online RE coordinator. She will be working with Reverend Eric and the RE team in a limited online capacity to sustain RE activities while we're between DREs and while we are online due to the pandemic. REZUUM, RE Zoom sessions will resume again on Sunday, January 31st at 1 p.m. after a transition period to prepare the winter sessions. Also, please welcome Lisa Janetsky in a new role. She has agreed to co-moderate the UUFOM Parents Circle Facebook page with Shana. Amanda Van Riggenmorter, Amanda Clifton, and Carol Cooper are continuing in their roles as on the RE team supporting our families and children. To volunteer for the COVID-19 task force, please contact Reverend Eric, Shannon, or Beth by email, phone, or on the Facebook Friends page. Thank you for all you do to keep our fellowship family and the wider community safe. You'll receive the next edition of the Weekly Candle Flame on Friday, January 8th, 2021. If you wish to submit an article for the next issue, please email it to Wendy Altmeyer by Wednesday, January 6th at 5 p.m. And now it's Birthday Sunday. Today is Birthday Recognition Sunday. If you have had or will have a birthday in January, or we missed yours last month, please raise your hand in the participant area of your screen and or type your birthday in the chat box. Wendy will acknowledge you by name.
Happy birthday, Jacob, on the 19th of January.
Megan would like to say something.
My sister Carmen is having her birthday soon. I don't know what day it is, but it's going to be soon.
In what month?
January.
January. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Carmen. Happy birthday, Chris. His birthday was on January 1st. Carmen's birthday is January 25th. Craig Murchison's birthday is January 14th. Happy birthday, Craig. Happy birthday, Janelle, on the 28th. Happy birthday, everybody.
All right. Now with your mics muted, please join the UUFOM choir in singing Happy Birthday, everybody.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear everyone. Happy birthday to you.
For the new year, just days old, beginning today, always beginning, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope. For beginnings that emerge out of endings, appear amidst continuity, become visible in hindsight, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope. For all that times and for all the ways we have begun anew together, we light our chalice, symbol of faith, perseverance, and hope.
Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Melanie. And welcome, everyone. Good morning. When I was about 10 years old, everything seems to have happened right around when I was 10 years old in my mind. Plaques began to be hung on our kitchen wall. Before then, there was only a clock, a chiming clock on the wall. It chimed every hour. This was in the kitchen, yeah. But now these pressboard small plaques started showing up on the wall with words of wisdom. Do not walk in front of me, I may not follow. Do not walk behind me, I may not lead. Just walk beside me and be my friend. And others, which I can't remember, but I do remember and seem to have taken to heart this one. There are always three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the truth. What I don't remember hearing is an additional line that says, and no one is lying. Memories shared serve each differently. To be honest, it could have been there and I just didn't have enough life experience to grasp the meaning. Even after 40 more years of living, I still forget this truth, which often leads to frustration or arguments or hurt feelings. So what about these different perspectives? Where do they come from? What do we do with them? There are baskets full of theories, but for the next 45 minutes or so, I'd like you to consider this premise. Experiences affect perspective and beliefs. Perspectives affect experiences and beliefs. Beliefs affect experiences and perspectives. Yeah, circular. So whether we're aware of it or not, none of these can exist in a vacuum, and all of them together make up our lives. Now, with your mics muted, please join Melanie Willison and Sandy Hay in singing our opening hymn, Where Do We Come From, by Paul Gauguin and Brian Tate.
Thank you, Shannon. This hymn involves two different parts, and I'm going to go ahead and sing through it first to practice it with you all. The verse 1 goes like this, and I'll sing it once and then you can try it. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? You can sing with me. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? And then there's another verse, which is on the next slide, and you'll see both of them together. For people with a higher voice that want to sing on top, they can join in and say, where do we come from? And if you want to try that, where do we come from? And then at the end, we go back to the where are we going? Just for fun to end the song. And Sandy's going to join me. So we will go through verse 1 once and repeat it. And then the slide will move. And those who want to keep singing verse 1 can keep singing it. And those who want to add the top part, join in for that twice. And then we'll sing the last line together. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where are we going?
In the spirit of life, creator of all that we may find divine and sacred, this is the time of our service that we enter a period of meditation, reflection, prayer, and silence. I invite you to take a moment to center yourself, find a comfortable position, and close your eyes. Breathe in deep and exhale. Breathe in and out. Can you imagine dropping a stone or a pebble into the water? Maybe a pond or a lake. Maybe you find a stone to skip across the water instead. Which do you find? If you chose to drop a stone or a pebble in the water, can you see the first ripples of water as the stone or pebble disappears in the depths of the water? The water may seem clear or may be muddy or murky. The stone or pebble's journey stops when it hits the bottom. If you choose to skip a stone, imagine the first rings of water created. The rings seem to be individual, but then they begin to merge and become one. This creating a new ring, transforming old into new. So too, our joys and concerns, spoken and unspoken, are at first individual, then merge. The hope and promise of their transformation is that the new beginnings are created out of old. May this be so. Blessed be, and amen.
Thank you, Kathy. Our story today is They All Saw a Cat by Brendan Wessel. The cat walked through the world with its whiskers, ears, and paws. And the child saw a cat. And the dog saw a cat. And the fox saw a cat. Yes, they all saw the cat. The cat walked through the world with its whiskers, ears, and paws. And the fish saw a cat. And the mouse saw a cat. And the bee saw a cat. Yes, they all saw the cat. The cat walked through the world with its whiskers, ears, and paws. And the bird saw a cat. And the flea saw a cat. And the snake saw a cat. And the skunk saw a cat. And the worm saw a cat. And the bat saw a cat. Yes, they all saw the cat. Yes, they all saw a cat. A child, and a dog, and a fox, and a fish, and a mouse, and a bee, and a bird, and a flea, and a snake, and a skunk, and a worm, and a bat. The cat knew them all, and they all knew the cat. And the cat walked through the world with its whiskers, ears, and paws. Then it came to the water. And imagine what it saw. What did it see? What do you think? How do you see a cat? Do you think you see a cat the same way as your neighbor? As your dog? I know I don't see a cat like the bee saw the cat. Does that change what the cat is? Interesting. Let's now share in an interlude, Moon Mary Light by Marco D'Amico, used with permission under a Creative Commons license, played for us today by Melanie Willison.
Thank you, Melanie. We have two readings today. The first reading is a quote by John Green. Harry Potter isn't real. Oh no? Wait, what do you mean by real? Is this video blog real? Am I real if you can see me and hear me, but only through the internet? Are you real if I can read your comment, but I don't know who you are, or what your name is, or where you're from, or what you look like, or how old you are? I know all these things about Harry Potter. Maybe Harry Potter's real and you're not. And the second reading today is a quote by Philip K. Dick, also on various interpretations of subjective reality without much due for objective reality. Maybe each human being lives in a unique world, a private world different from those inhabited and experienced by other humans. If reality differs from person to person, can we speak of reality singular? Or shouldn't we really be talking about plural realities? And if there are plural realities, are some more true, more real than others? What about the world of a schizophrenic? Maybe it's as real as our world. Maybe we cannot say we are in touch with reality and he is not, but should instead say his reality is so different from ours that he can't explain his to us and we can't explain ours to him. The problem then is that if subjective worlds are experienced too differently, there occurs a breakdown in communication, and there is the real illness. Let's now share an interlude, A Light Blue Dream by Gabrielle de Souza Alencar, used with permission under a Creative Commons license, played for us today by Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie. That was beautiful. So beautiful. So, you know, Kathy and I have been watching Netflix. I'm a very extroverted people kind of person. I really miss people. And so Kathy and I have been getting together for the past few months, well, really kind of since the pandemic started. And we sit down on Zoom and we both have Netflix on our televisions and we both tune into the same thing, the same show. And on 3, we push play and here we go, we're off. And we're watching these shows. So we found this show and we started watching it. And really, I suggested the show because I think it's funny and lighthearted, and I needed something funny and lighthearted, and I'd watched it before. But my experience wasn't the same this time. So let me tell you a little bit about the show. The beginning of the show starts by introducing us to the main character who finds herself in the unlikely scenario of an afterlife paradise for only the most ethical people. And while paradise after death may seem like the unlikely part to some of us, it's the most ethical people part that makes it obvious, based on this character, that there's been a huge mistake in her life. So while Kathy and I watched this series, a bunch of questions and observations came up, including, how can we create a service around these concepts? And the seeds of this dialogue were planted. And it wasn't just the questions that were thought-provoking, it was the dialogue that emerged from experiencing the show together that was enriching and valuable. So, Kathy, what were your takeaways from this experience?
Well, so my first real takeaway was just how much fun it was to watch with somebody in community. It was just delightful to experience this crazy show with somebody who I realized really had some really thought-provoking questions around reality and ethics and morals and things. And so in community, it was enjoyable to be just sharing that with you. So that was one takeaway I had. The other takeaway I had was that, and it goes back to our readings about reality and what is reality, and are there multiple realities? And kind of this is a question that's always kind of been an interest of mine. And so that was interesting to hear your thoughts on it and my thoughts, because while they're alike, there are some differences, and that was enriching for me to have that conversation with you.
Yeah. So I want
that was one, and then the other.
Wait. I want to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
So I want to go back to what you said about like how much fun it was to watch something and discuss it, because like I had a really good time too, and it didn't always go smoothly. You know, like we had the opportunity to practice patience and stuff like that when you got disconnected, or when there's like an echo because we weren't totally in sync or whatever it was. But for me, just that being there together and being able to look at you on the screen while you look at you on my Zoom screen and see you laughing and hear you laughing was great. It made a huge difference for me. It was so different than just sitting there and watching it by myself. You know what I mean? And then the talking about it and talking about the reality, you know, you were talking about the different perspectives of what is reality. And I remember you telling me this story about conversations that you had with your family, with your siblings, right? About you'd sit around and you talk about what it was like growing up, and how each of you had really different stories about what it was like growing up in the same house. And it made me want to talk to my siblings and see how different our stories are, which I'm sure they're very, very different based on my age gap between my sibs. But it was, I guess I hadn't really thought about before how even siblings that are really close together could have so different narratives of their past. And then, like, just to tie on to the reality, the differences in reality, I think that just by acknowledging that we have different realities, that exists, that individuals have different realities, helps us to support we are supporting the first principle of the inherent worth and dignity of all people, right? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it was interesting while you were talking about my family, because we are close, and we are close in age too. There's only 5 years between my brother and my younger sister. But I remember vividly after my mom died, we were sitting around telling stories. And I was like, where did that come from? I don't remember that. My reality of growing up was completely different. Right. You know, they had stories about my mom's bread. She baked bread on Saturday, and the joy of the smell of that. And I had stories about, or feelings about, how hard it was for me to be fitting into a family that was very academically inclined and articulate everything that I felt I wasn't. But we were, only 5 years difference, the same time period, and how that reality of each of our lives were very different and influenced our lives, even for till today, really.
Mhm.
So it was quite stunning to realize that.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah,
and
it reminded. Go ahead.
this
Finish up.
notion, I was going to say, this notion of reality really affects my spirituality and my UU identity. And that's because I grew up as a UU. So I had and was given the opportunities to ask questions, to think
Mhm.
about spirituality different than the traditional Christian type viewpoint.
Mhm.
But that notion of reality affects my clear understanding of things now, because I really feel like reality is made up of experiences.
Mhm.
So my reality is different than your reality because our experiences are different.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that makes sense.
and so that ties into that.
Ties into your UU identity.
So, yeah. So I
Mhm.
was kind of like thinking about what your takeaways were from it. And you talked a little bit about just the fun of doing it together in reality. But I'm just sort of curious how it affects your spirituality now, or
Well,
doesn't.
I think that one of the things that we realize in relationship with other people is that, well, first I want to comment on what you said about your family, about growing up UU, which I did not. And when I came to UU, it felt like somebody lifted a lid off of a box and I stood up out of it and I had so many more options. Before I was just on a path, there was a path, and then there were all kinds of different things that I could consider, and this was one of them. And when I was presented with this option of reality and how I do have some control over my thoughts and experiences, and based on my thoughts and what I put in front of me, and the idea of that, it felt, I was really excited. I was so excited about that. And it was the difference, the stark difference between those two experiences of having to stay in the box and then being freed from the box. So that really, that freeing defines a lot of my UU identity. And that might explain why really I am so excited still about being a UU, because I have options. I have options I never thought I'd, and I can take responsibility for it, and for my own spiritual journey. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, oh, I know. When Jim was reading the reading about Harry Potter and about how he knows, John Green knows all this stuff about Harry Potter, but he doesn't know anything about the bloggers that are watching his video, or the viewers of his video blog. It made me think about all of the books that I've read and how I love to read series books and how I like to watch the same series television shows. And it made me wonder, like, do I have relationships with these characters? Is that why I keep going back to them over and over? Because like I've developed relationships with them. And I think I'm going to have to think some more about that one. But that was just an interesting, I wonder if that's what I do. So I thought that I was going to hate this show. I thought that it was too far-fetched. It was an interesting plot. I kept coming back because I didn't know what was going to happen next. And that's the only reason, is because things changed and it was just so crazy. It was just so ridiculously nuts, yet kind of, I could see myself in the characters, and in all four of the, well, five of the main characters, I don't know, six, but they're the different characteristics of selfishness, or, you know, airhead, those kinds of things. And so I watched it, and that was the first time around. But when I watched it with you, boy, did that change. You brought to the table really questions that I hadn't considered, insights about messages that could be received by watching it. And then when we started having this conversation, I was talking with other people about it, when we started having the conversations that we had, and other people had the same conversations too. So where I was going with that is how I learned, or came to believe, that this experience of hanging out with you and watching this show and having the talks about it allowed me to use the show as a mirror back to me. It reflected back to me who I was and who I wanted to be. And the same with the conversations to you. So I guess in that way, because our discussions tended to lean on the moralistic and spiritual side, especially because it's about, you know, the afterlife and what happens when you die, or when they died, because I don't think that happens when I die. It was meaningful. It was meaningful and really interesting to talk about. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, it does. I want to go to the part about your last statement about the fact that it's what they do in their lives when they die. But I think that was a big question for us, and it goes to sort of our views as to what happens. I mean, that's a big question. Some people believe there's this lovely place one goes to. Other people believe, that you're just dead, nothing happens, and so I think that enriched our discussion, because I think we could find similarities, but there were clearly differences in how we thought about that and what we thought about death and or afterlife. And that was enriching for me, because it gave me a window of understanding about that and allowed insights that I hadn't thought about.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
So one of the things that happened in the show is,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that happened during the show is that they had to go through all this stuff. So like, they faced dilemmas, like every sitcom-y kind of thing. They faced all these dilemmas, but they were very appointed moralistic dilemmas, because they had to achieve something. There was a goal that they had to achieve, and it was very important to them. And I was curious about how you would have handled the one when like the main character thought it was her fault that the entire neighborhood, her entire neighborhood, was falling into a sinkhole. So like, the whole thing was just devolving, and it was because of something that she did, but her best friend took the rap for her. And so I wondered, if you really screwed up and an innocent person was taking the blame, would you step up if it meant that you'd lose everything?
Boy, I sure hope I would.
Right? Right?
Yeah,
That's a good
because-
answer.
because that's where my values are.
Right.
But in reality, you know, I don't know if I would. It's hard to know that until you're put in that position.
Mhm.
You know, because you do things differently depending upon, and I go back to the experiences, about your experiences. So I sure hope that my beliefs and my principles and would come to the forefront, but I don't know that. I believe strongly that we're all interconnected. I believe in that principle.
Mhm.
And so I hope that I would. But I'm also human and and imperfect.
Right.
And so does that then step in and play more? I don't know that. I've never been in a circumstances such as that. I've had small moral and ethical decisions that I've made. But I've never been to that point. So
Yeah.
to answer your question, I sure hope I'd step up, but I don't know.
Yeah. I agree. I think that right now my answer is yes. I think right now, yeah. I could see me trying to rationalize or trying to compare. Does it make sense? You know, am I willing to lose this to give up this? You know, can I live with it? Were they bad? You know, like, do I need to, maybe I'll judge them a little bit, but should I, you know what I mean? Like, and then bad Shannon, you're being bad now, you know, like I can hear that internal dialogue of me, of that human side of me, or that whatever, not nice, selfish side of me that says, do I have to? I don't know. But it probably depends on how much I like them, you know, if I'm being honest. But hopefully, again, I would stand up and be principled and do the right thing. And then there was another circumstance that was really close to that, but it added a little tweak where a whole group of people did something that was wrong, and one of them got caught. And nobody said anything. And so this one person was going to take the rap, but then another person couldn't take it, and they admitted that they were part of it. And so they stepped up and stood next to the one person. So then there were 3 other people who hadn't stepped up yet. So if other people had started, you know, stepping up and being accountable for it, I think I'd probably bow to the peer pressure. I'd step in. That'd probably be the determining factor for me to step up. Would that change it for you?
I think that I would bow to peer pressure also, but I'm also somebody that tilts at windmills. I'm somebody that when there is something on the marginal or some individual on the marginal things, I really want to empower them. And so I might actually not bow to peer pressure and step, you know, but I don't know that. Again, these are all situations, and that's where I think my morals and ethics are situational in a lot of ways, depending upon the situation. You know, might do it for one thing and might not do it for another thing.
We talked a lot about these, like, what would you do if, and we talked a lot about I think I hope I use the right word, the esoteric, the things that well, like we're talking about, like, do our thoughts create reality for others? Do you remember at the beginning of the show, but like I think it was the first episode, and the main character knew that she shouldn't be there, but was still in her self-centered ways, and so she was stealing shrimp, and because she thought there wasn't enough, you know, and she was like shoving it down her shirt, and she took it back to her thing, and she was drinking she got wasted, and she was talking junk about people behind their back, you know, she was acting like that. And the next day she woke up, and there were giant shrimp flying through the sky, like attacking people. And I remember we watched it kind of recently, and you were like, oh, that's the like the locusts. And I was like, oh, because honest to God, I didn't even think about that. But all of it, I did get that all of it had to do with her actions and her thoughts. So everyone was wearing these jumpsuits that were maize and blue because she had on a U of M shirt. And there were giant giraffes running around attacking people because she called one of the other characters a giant giraffe. Like, and so you guys, like, this is the farcical kind of crazy stuff that you're like, what? Somebody taking drugs? But that's what happens. But the message was about our thoughts creating realities, and that time it affected everybody. So where are you on that? Our thoughts creating realities for other people? Because we know that our thoughts create realities for ourselves.
I was thinking about that as you were talking, and I think we do in a lot of ways, because I'm thinking about people with dementia and how their reality is different than what we're experiencing. But in order to have a connection and a relationship, you have to enter into their reality. And so you're, in essence, leaving your reality to enter into their reality or their thoughts. And I think you do. You, for a relationship, have to, in many ways, not step out of your own and open yourself up to possibilities.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. We talked about so when Aunt Maida was she was what is it? What does she have? Dementia. When she had dementia, and she was thinking that she was like in 1947, and she could see her friends. They were outside. She was in the hospital. She didn't know she was in the hospital. Her friends were outside. She was working. She worked yesterday, you know, these kind of things. And I, instead of saying to her, no, that's not the case, that's not how it is, it was easier for me to join her in that reality and say, oh, really? Tell me about them. And what was this like? And not to make her life worse, but just to join her in it and try to understand where she was. So that makes sense. I was thinking about when I carry baggage with me, and I impose it. Like I'm grumpy because I'm carrying baggage with me, and that grumpiness gets passed on to somebody else too. So with the with what we also, or I was thinking when we were prepping for the service about the traditions that we hit and the sources, and I love how this helped solidify just how much I use the first source, which is my own experience, as a ruler or a scale to determine what my beliefs are, and look at my experiences and how that feels for me is as good of a way that I can explain it. What do you think?
Well, for me, it is definitely experiences, but also I think the third principle of acceptance of others and encouraging one another in spiritual growth. While it's always been vitally important to me and interesting to me, I realized through our experiences that it had been very individual.
Mm.
So it's taking it out of relationship and looking at it as an individual basis. And whereas when we were going through this experience, it was with another person. And that was a critical spark for me.
Agreed.
That it wasn't just Kathy French or Shannon, it was Kathy and Shannon coming up and talking in dialogue sparked a whole lot of things for me. So I came away with the feeling that you can't, in order to grow spiritually, you have to do it in relation. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And also the seventh principle about how we're all woven together, and we're all doing this thing that we're doing. I mean, we could call it a whole lot of things, but everything we do affects other people. I also like the fourth principle that says that there's a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I mean, I can apply that to this.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised that this show ended up being, I ended up having spiritual growth and all these other growth times, which I think also takes me to, goodness gracious, who would have thought that I and you would get together and we'd have like this growth time and these awarenesses, these aha moments. And isn't this interesting, from this crazy sitcom, The Good Place? Because I know you guys are really wondering, what sitcom are they talking about if you don't already watch it? How could that be? Who I did truly never saw this coming. The Good Place. Yeah. And also so we've watched the whole series now, and I love how they wrapped it up. But don't skip to the end. If you guys decide to go ahead and jump in, like the last episode, they really wrapped it up very nicely. But I got to tell you how they wrapped it up with my interpretation, right? My perception of how they wrapped it up was that people can change, people can grow, people can learn. Is that what you got, Kath?
That is what I got. And maybe that's a really good ending, just to conclude a little bit about our dialogue. And that is the potential for growth in everybody if they remain open. And sharing experiences, at least with one another, with one other person, offers that opportunity to share and to grow. And that we find meaning in spiritual growth anywhere. I mean, it could be in a silly sitcom, to walking down the street in a beautiful rainbow, to being in worship, to anywhere, if you remain open and eyes open to the possibilities.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Our hope is that this discussion isn't over. Namaste, and may it be so.
We affirm the work of this fellowship and its mission through, I've got a blocking screen here, through our financial contributions. We continue to rely on you paying your pledges and providing what you would otherwise drop in the collection plate, while our in-person activities may be suspended. Our staff continue to work hard to provide the services we need. They and the bills still need to be paid. Please give as generously as you can, and may what you give bring you joy. Please take this time to write a check if you wish and mail it to the fellowship at 6220 Jefferson Avenue in Midland. To donate online, please stay after the service for instructions. Thank you for your generosity. Let's now share in an offertory, Light Blue Crystal by Gabrielle D'Souza Alencar, used with permission under a Creative Commons license, played for us today by Melanie. Thank you, Melanie. That was beautiful as always. Now, with your mics muted, please join Melanie and Sandy in singing our closing hymn, which are verses 3 and 4 of the opening hymn, which is Where Do We Come From our supplemental hymnal.
I will run through teaching this one like I did the first one. This is verses 3 and 4, and verse 4 will start, and it goes, where do we come from? Where are we going? So you can try singing with me. Where do we come from? Where are we going? And then the next part on the second slide is mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. You can try that with me. Mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. And then we'll end with that line at the very end. So Sandy will join me, and I tried to put in there how many times you keep going. If you want to keep going with the where do we come from? Where are we going? That goes all the way through except the last line. Or join in on the mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery. Okay, are you ready, Sandy?
Yep.
Okay. Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come
mystery.
from?
Life is a
Where
riddle
are
and a
we
mystery.
going?
Mystery.
Where do we
mystery.
come from?
Life is a
Where
riddle
are
and a
we
mystery.
going?
Where do
Mystery,
we come
mystery.
from?
Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Thank you, Sandy and Melanie. Our closing words today are from Samuel Tambor. Go forth in simplicity. find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the force of hate. Hold and embody a vision of common good that serves the need for all people.
Kathy and I want to thank Jim Chrisman, Sandy Hay, Melanie Willison, Sarah Ness Warren, and Wendy Altmeyer, who helped make this service possible today. And thank you all for joining us. If you can stay to chat, great. If you need to go, we understand. Whatever you may encounter in the coming week, please know that the love of this community goes with you. Until we are together again, many blessings and namaste.